The film begins in Moldova. The US is getting involved in a conflict called the Transnistria War. An American soldier, separated from his team after a severe attack, decides to venture into a nearby building alone instead of waiting for backup. Using his advanced imaging goggles, he discovers several bodies that appear to have frozen to death. He's startled to find a see-through, ghost-like figure, visible only through his goggles. As he transmits what he sees back to base, the ghostly figure passes through him, killing him instantly. Back in the US, a scientist named Mark, who works at DARPA, has just completed his latest invention, a machine that can break down materials using only waves. After demonstrating it to his supervisors, they want him to test its potential as a weapon on humans. Mark is uncomfortable with the idea of using his invention to harm people, but his boss reminds him that they work for the government, and that's just how things are. The army then orders Mark to go to Moldova to investigate some issues with the goggles he invented. Upon arriving at the American base in Chisinau, Mark meets General Orland and CIA officer Fran. Orland shows Mark a recording captured by the goggles before the soldier's death. Mark notices something unusual on the screen just before the ghostly figure appears. Orland explains that their security cameras have been detecting these anomalies for the past few weeks. Initially, they thought it was interference, but after their best soldier died, they realized it was something else. Autopsies revealed that the internal organs of the victim were frozen, but their skin was burned and corroded. More bodies have been found in the same condition in recent weeks, and their Moldovan military allies are clueless about it. Local teenagers have been tagging Genocide Aratare at the sites where the bodies were found, referring to a local myth about war ghosts. The CIA suspects it's some sort of cloaking technology, but that doesn't explain the soldier's death. Mark wants to examine these specters more closely before forming a theory, and reveals that he's brought a more powerful version of the goggles, a hyperspectral camera which can see a broader spectrum of light. Orland agrees to send Mark with a Delta Force team to investigate the disappearance of another team. Mark starts installing the camera on a military truck, which leads to some teasing from the soldiers. Captain Cabrera, an old friend of Mark's, quickly reprimands the team, reminding them that it was Mark's team that built these trucks. Major Sessions is not thrilled about bringing a civilian along, and makes Mark promise that his equipment will provide better protection this time. The group then gathers to discuss the mission details. They will be searching for a team that disappeared in a 5-story apartment building in an area controlled by insurgents. Their priority is to rescue any survivors and get out, but they must also neutralize any anomalies that they encounter. Fran insists that the anomalies are likely soldiers using advanced electronic camouflage and doesn't let Mark correct her. She will also be joining the mission. Mark's job is to stay in the truck and monitor the feeds from the soldiers' helmet cameras. The team reaches the building without any problems and finds both soldiers and insurgents dead under mysterious circumstances as they explore deeper. They discover Sergeant Comstock hiding under a tub, who reveals that the rest of his team is dead and expresses fear of a supernatural entity that he encountered. On the next floor, they encounter one of these ghostly figures. Despite being shot at, the specter remains unharmed and kills the soldiers one by one. Mark urges them to retreat, but Fran insists on gathering more information. As the soldiers resort to using grenades, Cabrera orders a retreat. The surviving soldiers manage to escape through a window, but the specter follows them, continuing its deadly assault. Mark uses this opportunity to record the specter using his hyperspectral camera. The specter appears humanoid and even has a human face, which puzzles Mark. Cabrera attempts to attack the specter, but is killed in the process. His distraction, however, buys enough time for the remaining soldiers to escape. As they drive away, Mark tries to question Comstock about his experience, but their truck falls into a minefield, killing Comstock and the drivers. The survivors take refuge in an abandoned factory, while Mark retrieves his hyperspectral camera. The team discusses their encounter, accepting that it was supernatural rather than technological. Mark explains that the Spectre was humanoid and seemed conscious, but he's still unsure of its nature. They discover multiple Spectres outside the building, kept at bay by a circle of iron filings acting as a barrier. They hear a noise from another room and find two siblings, Sarai and Bogdan. Fran communicates with them in their language and learns that they're alone. They also find a transmission tower in the room, which broadcasts their conversation with a 20-mile radius, potentially alerting enemies. Despite the risk, Sessions believes that this is their only chance of survival. Mark talks to the siblings through Fran and learns from Sari that her father created the barrier, and she believes that the Spectres are lost souls unable to find peace. Mark wants to learn more, so Sari takes him and Fran to her father's location, leaving Bogdan with the soldiers. Sari has yet to reveal to her brother Bogdan that their father died while setting up the barrier, and she had to bring his body inside. Bogdan believes their father is out seeking help. Mark examines the father's body and finds a necklace with a ceramic tile and a map of Mazarov, a district by the river. Sari is unsure how her father knew about the iron, but she knows that the Spectres first appeared in Mazarov. Later, the soldiers receive a message from their base, confirming that the helicopters and tanks will pick them up at Open Plaza, about half a mile away at dawn. The team debates whether this is a good idea, due to the lack of cover, but Mark quickly devises a plan. They can use the abundant iron filings in the factory to make bombs that can harm the Spectres. He also modifies the hyperspectral camera to function as a large searchlight that can reveal the Spectres on the streets. They send the modification instructions to the base so that their rescuers can also create a few searchlights and arrive safely. While everyone's busy, Sari finally tells Bogdan the truth and gives him their father's necklace. Shortly after, they hear noises outside and use the new searchlight to see what's happening. The Spectres have climbed a neighboring building and are jumping on power lines to cross the barrier without getting hurt. The team quickly prepares to leave, and Sari shows them an alternative exit at the back, but the Spectres follow them. Mark aims the searchlight at them, and now that they're visible to everyone, the soldiers can shoot at the Spectres with their new iron-filled bullets. The plan works, and these bullets do damage to the Spectres, although the impact sometimes pushes the soldiers back too. The soldiers fire a few extra bullets to create an iron fog that blocks the way, temporarily leaving the Spectres behind as they follow Sari's directions to finally reach the open plaza. The team takes shelter inside an abandoned bus, and Mark notices the searchlight is running out of power. This means they're completely blind to any incoming attacks, and they become anxious when they hear a noise approaching. Fortunately, it's the rescue tanks coming for them, and they've brought their own searchlights. When they activate them, they reveal all the Spectres hiding in the surrounding buildings, and they immediately open fire on them. The team quickly has to leave the bus and take cover from the falling debris. This means they don't get to communicate their findings to their rescuers in time. The new arrivals leave the tanks and go after the Spectres with normal weapons, which of course ends up with most of them dead. The Spectres don't only kill the soldiers, they attack the tanks as well, destroying the searchlights, but not being able to move through the ceramic parts, which Mark notices. The team needs to run away, but they can't find Bogdan. The boy's looking for his dad's necklace because he accidentally dropped it, and Sari tries to go after him, but before she can reach him, a Spectre goes through Bogdan. Mark checks on the boy and confirms that it's too late as Fran comforts a grieving Sari. The Spectres begin gathering in the center of the area to gather focus, and for a moment, the team thinks it's all over. But luckily, the helicopters land just in time. Mark notices the wind from the helicopter's rotor is making it hard for the Spectres to advance, so he grabs all the iron grenades he has and breaks them on the ground. This wind pushes the iron fillings toward the Spectres and keeps them away while the team finally escapes. As soon as the helicopters take off, they notice they aren't going back to base. This is because the base has been compromised, so they're going to a refugee bunker instead. Looking out the windows, they see Spectres causing havoc throughout the city. Upon reaching the bunker, they're initially met with hostility, but Fran quickly communicates in the local language, and they're allowed inside. While the soldiers secure the bunker, Mark and Fran take Sare to a doctor due to a shrapnel injury. To distract her from the pain, Mark gives her the necklace he retrieved from Bogdan, which belonged to her father. He asks Sare about her father's knowledge of the specters, but she only knows that he made ceramic containers for Mazarov, the power plant from where the specters originate. Suddenly, they hear a loud thump outside. It's Orland, who's arrived with a few survivors from the base attack, bringing as much gear as they could. Orland recounts the attack by invisible entities and how only 19 of them survived. They couldn't contact their superiors during the hasty escape, so their only plan is to fortify the bunker and wait. Mark interrupts them when he realizes what the specters are. He deduces that they're a form of Bose-Einstein condensate, a state of matter predicted by Nath Bose and Albert Einstein, based on the fact that Comstock hid under a ceramic tub and the specters couldn't touch the ceramic parts of the tanks. He recalls his invention that can hit the specters with plasmic discharge and proposes to build more using the gear they brought from the base and any electronics they can find in the bunker. The soldiers immediately start looking for useful parts, and Mark begins assembling as many weapons as he can. Among the gear from the base, they find a robot they call a mechanical Rottweiler, which they use to install a new searchlight. They also examine a city map, and with information from Fran and the locals, plan a flight to the power plant via the safest route. After Orland gives an inspirational speech, they depart for the power plant. With the Rottweiler illuminating the power plant's platform, the first group of soldiers test the new weapons on incoming specters. Mark's invention proves effective, and once the first horde of specters is destroyed, the other two groups leave the helicopters. With all platforms now blocked, the soldiers focus on fighting the incoming specters, while the helicopter flies ahead to drop Mark, Fran, and 2 guards inside the plant. They're immediately attacked by specters upon entering, so they split up. The soldiers stay to fight, while Mark and Fran quickly search for the lab. They come across an armored door, and once Fran hacks the lock, they gain access to the main lab, where they find all the scientists dead. There are X-rays indicating that the scientists had been scanning humans at a molecular level, and then using a special 3D printer to replicate them in condensate form. In the lab, Mark and Fran discover an assembly line, confirming that this is indeed a weapon. They find dozens of specters locked in cells, half of which are broken, indicating that an accident allowed some specters to escape, and the scientists couldn't contain them. There's a machine with an emergency shutdown procedure, but it's filled with technical terms that Fran needs time to translate. Outside, the soldiers notice that the latest specters can regenerate, making them harder to fight, and some soldiers are starting to die. Fran figures out that they need to unlock all the ports and pull a bracket to release the cables, which should kill all the specters simultaneously. As Mark climbs on top of the machine to do this, Fran shoots at the specters, escaping their cells to prevent them from stopping Mark. A whirlwind of specter force forms outside, pushing the soldiers back. As one soldier shoots at its center, Mark pulls off the cables and the bracket, causing a shockwave that knocks him off the machine and sends the soldiers flying. The specters begin to disintegrate, and the soldiers notice the pain on their transparent faces as they disappear. Fran checks on Mark, and they hear a noise coming from a hidden room on a lower floor. Inside, they find the brains and peripheral nervous systems of real humans inside capsules. The scientists hadn't just been scanning people, they were using them to create and control the specters. These people aren't dead, but they aren't truly alive either. Mark can tell they're in pain, so he begins disconnecting them to bring them peace. Fran wants to stop him, arguing that he should consider the bigger picture, but Mark insists that this is the bigger picture. Now that the specters are gone, the American army can rescue the team and bring them to a new base. However, only a few days pass before the soldiers are sent out again because the government wants them to retrieve the machines from the power plant to reverse engineer them and uncover their secrets. Mark bids farewell to Orlin and Fran, and Sari thanks him in English before he boards a plane to return to the States. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is where this movie recap comes to an end. What did you think about this movie? Give it a rating between 1 to 10 and let me know what you thought in the comment section below. I thought it was pretty fascinating and the movie had me hooked the whole way through. If you want to see more movie recaps that keep you hooked the whole way through, then make sure you click that video that's on screen now and that you're subscribed to our channel to see more awesome movie recaps in your inbox. Thank you guys so much for watching all the way until the end of this video, and I'll see you in the next movie recap.